Very informal, so that, for example, when I thought that we should try to make this FORTRAN system, I simply wrote a letter to my boss at the time, Cuthbert Hurd, and suggested that we do that, and he said, fine, we'll do it.
In August of 1952, the engineering model of the defense calculator, later named the 701, was running. And I think we had 6 orders. And we invited the representative of each of the companies who had ordered the machine to come to Poughkeepsie for a week. And we each got a shot on his computer. You write this program, you're going to, bam, got the result. And we all sat there and said, how in the world are we going to keep these machines busy? It's so tremendously fast. How can we do that?
The FORTRAN team, of course, was put together gradually as the problem got larger and larger that we had to deal with. It began with Irv Ziller and myself.
Our primary objective or focus was to permit people to concentrate on the essence of their problems and eliminate preoccupation with the mechanics of the computer per se.
Very shortly after that, Harlan Herrick joined us.
I said, John Backus, we can't simulate a human programmer. Taking this language and using this language to put a problem and getting an object code from the 704 that would even approach the efficiency of a human programmer. Like me, for example, I'm a great programmer, you know.
And then we hired Bob Nelson.
I came to work for John Backus on the first day that the FORTRAN group met. There were 4 of us on that day. And I actually was hired as a technical typist.
And eventually became one of our best technical people.
Then we gradually acquired some people from outside of IBM, Sheldon Best from MIT.
Almost everyone was there already, but when I came, it was John Backus and Harlan Herrick, Irv Ziller, and Bob Nelson, I think, came about the same time that I did, or maybe a little afterwards. I can't remember exactly.
And Roy Nutt from United Aircraft, who gave a lot of his time to us.
We responded right away, and I shortly afterwards took a trip down to New York to talk to him.
And shortly after that, Peter Sheridan joined us.
I was tickled pink when John decided to take me aboard.
Dave Sayer joined about that time, too.
I joined IBM in 1955, and I joined as a mathematician.
Lois Heipt came.
Just after I graduated from college as a math major, but knew nothing about computers, except they existed.
Dick Goldberg, a mathematician who joined us about midway.
Well, it was very exciting. It was completely outside of my experience. I mean, I had been in academic life, before that, and I never had done that kind of crash thing, but there was like all things that are out of the ordinary. I mean, there was a lot of excitement.
But these were very unusual people. Some of them were extremely unusual, and it was a kind of almost like a matter of fate that they came to join us, because they had certain abilities that if without them, we probably would never have been able to do what we did.
And in the background was the skepticism, the entrenchment of many of the people who did programming in this way at that time, what was called hand-to-hand combat with the machine.
So we had to discover all the technology that we needed ourselves.
we'd come to work, there was an elevator that worked very slowly, and as soon as Irv and I, or Peter and I, got on the elevator man, Lou, would look at us and says, "Oh, there they are. Bring the men in the white coat." The white coats, as though we were sort of irregular IBMers.
We lived in a room where we all had desks, no dividers.
And the desks were butted up against one another.
It was a quaint little place, very pleasant.
We were all in each other's pockets.
We worked as a kind of small family.
We were in completely uncharted waters. We were trying to do something that basically nobody had ever tried to do before, and nobody had ever succeeded in doing.
That none of this theory existed. Nothing was known about parsing. It was all invented at the time, and it wasn't a case of choosing between this method and that method, and this theory and that theory. There were no theories.
You were engaging in something that was not an everyday activity, something that was not a humdrum thing.
It was an act of faith. There were no benchmarks to compare the work to. There was only the group of us working together and seeing what each other was doing and having faith in ourselves.
Occasionally people did ask us how long it was going to, when are you guys going to be done? And we would always say 6 months. Come back in 6 months. We honestly felt all the time that we were going to be done 6 months from now, but it turned out to be 3 years.
John was really more of a leader of that effort than he cares to admit.
We spent a lot of time talking together, and perhaps that helped to motivate us all.
In some way that I don't know, he managed to keep a little pool of silence that the group could work in for long enough to carry out what it needed to do.
What kept us going, I think, was the challenge of the problems, the feeling that we were going to succeed, and the feeling that what we would succeed in doing was more than completing a project, but doing something that would fundamentally advance the state of the art.
Little by little, it didn't make mistakes, and then when it stopped making mistakes, or almost stopped making mistakes, then we could finally issue FORTRAN.
FORTRAN. It sounds like something spelled backwards.
We would continuously invent very trite names for the system, and I would come in with the today's name and try it out on my friends, and they would all say, "Oh, God, Bacchus, no, not that."
And one day he came in and he says, "I've got it. Formula translation? FORTRAN." And I went, ugh.
But it was the only thing we had, so FORTRAN it became.
The people I have known who have made great innovations, von Neumann, Nobel Prize winners I've known, others, John Bacchus, they have to be able to think tops down and bottoms up. There are very few people like that.
Perhaps the most important characteristic for scientific innovation is a freedom of association, the ability to interrelate what perhaps for most minds would appear to be totally disparate and unrelated, a leap of connectivity, a leap of logic.
To ask a new question that hasn't been asked before, that brings out an aspect of the subject that is unnoticed.
A lack of inhibition, an ability to throw out the feelings that you can't do it and let yourself really become free inside.
I don't know, people are very different. I myself, am very slow and like to go very deeply and in great detail into things. So that takes persistence and patience and
the willingness to fail all the time. That you constantly you have to generate many ideas and then work very hard only to discover that they don't work. And you keep doing that over and over again until finally you find one that does work.
If you really are working in a new area, where do you think it helps if you are something of a science fiction writer? Because you have to construct scenarios about how to get from here to there, where there is someplace no one has ever been before.
We just thought of it as something that would make programming the 704 very much less expensive and very much easier and more accessible, but we didn't have the slightest idea that it was going to cause such a stir as it finally did.
Well, I think it was a very well thought out thing. It's simple and it's elegant.
And it's quite natural. It's a language that is very easy to learn.
Well, it's also adapted. I mean, it's changed.
It's still a very good big language for programming scientific programs in. I mean, the notation is really quite close to what mathematicians and scientists use. And furthermore, it produces good programs. I mean,
I certainly could never have foreseen how it would have affected my life, but it has affected my life now very deeply.
First of all, I'm thankful and proud. Of course, we'd all be crazy if we weren't proud of it.
It's not everybody that starts out their working life with such a, absolutely marvelous project.
The really remarkable achievement that my friends made in producing the compiler is not well understood by the computer world in general. They set out to produce a compiler that would produce the most optimized programs possible. And they did this in such a superlative way by a remarkable group effort that this compiler produced the most optimized programs for the next 20 years. And when you compare that with other technological efforts, what other computer has ever survived for more than 5 years? What program stands as the best program for more than 2 or 3 years? One can hardly think of any technological effort that stands as the best work in its field for more than a few years, and this one stood for 20.